All right, we're going to get started. There will be more people joining. So I will say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to some folks out there. Welcome to the AI connection layer, why your existing tools need a unifying platform. I'm your host today, Charles Gabriel. I'm a global client partner here at Akkio, and I'm thrilled that you're able to join us for today's conversation. A couple of quick notes before we go on housekeeping. This is being recorded. We will send out a link for you to share with your colleagues. We will be monitoring chat. If you do have questions along the way, please feel free to drop them into chat. If we can answer them live, we will. If not, we'll make sure you get some responses. So we do have an exceptional forward-thinking panel joining us today, executives who are all on the front lines of enterprise transformation. We're honored to be joined by leaders from IPG Mediabrands, Digitas, Mediaplus, and Akkio, who are all part of building the future of campaign intelligence. So please welcome our panelists. Today we have Matthew Kane, SVP Data and Analytics from Digitas, Enzo Ricciuli, Global Lead for AI and Innovation at Mediaplus, Anant Viravalli, Global Chief Analytics Officer, IPG Mediabrands, and John Riley, CEO and co-founder of Akkio. But before we begin, I want to share a few thoughts on the topic, because they gave me the mic. Not sure why they do that, but so here's the reality across our ecosystem. AI adoption is accelerating, but the results are lagging. Surveys show that a staggering 74% of companies struggle to scale value beyond early proofs of concept. Why is that? Because while we've invested heavily in best-in-class siloed AI tools, some smarter bidding here and better creative there, we've missed the necessary connective tissue. We've created powerful islands of automation, but they don't always talk to each other. This fragmentation is inefficient, it's a strategic risk, and it is contributing to a governance gap. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise with the missing piece, the AI connection layer. This is the unifying platform that orchestrates your existing AI investments, ensures data quality, and drives unified campaign intelligence. It's the key piece of technology that many enterprises are realizing it's often easier and faster to partner for than to spend years building from scratch. Critically, this technology shift is about organizational transformation. The ultimate goal is to democratize AI, empowering every employee to leverage institutional knowledge for competitive advantage. So let's get started. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We are just going to jump right in with questions. And I'm going to start with one for everybody, but I'll pass it around here. So for all of you, what does the connection layer mean to you? And I'm going to start with Enzo.
So I think, so I think that we can say that connectivity enables us to get the data faster. But I think that the main advantage of the connectivity is actually is that the intelligence becomes actually collective. So having this technology interconnected with each other is actually building a cognitive system. And I think that's the main advantage that the main breakthrough right now. That's and the more we are interconnecting and the more we are using these tools, at a certain moment, these tools or these systems will start learning, and that's actually a very, very, very important advantage that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely, and I like the idea. You're connecting, so the data is faster. You're going to have this connected intelligence. Not from your vantage point at IPG, what does the connective layer mean to you? And are there any trends and traction you're seeing across your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question, Charles. In our world of IPG, given we represent one of the big 5-6 advertising and marketing holdcos in the world, connectivity is quite an essential necessity in our lens to create what we call a single source of truth. If you think about marketers in current day and age, and I think this problem has only magnified in the last decade or so, As more and more systems have come online, more and more fragmentation has become a reality, and interconnectivity has not yet kind of played its way into creating more sophisticated intelligence. Data exists everywhere, but intelligence out of the data still seems to be quite scarce. So in our world, think about media, creative, CRM, retail, PR, corp comm. Every ecosystem has its own platform. And by design, while that works well from an activation lens, it does pose a challenge when we start to look at holistic results in a singular lens. And that fragmentation of customer views, fragmented optimization, fragmented decision making creates partial truth, which we all seem to think is the full truth today. So in our world at IPG, we have a very sophisticated data foundation in the form of Akkio, for those who are familiar, largest ethically sourced data source conglomerate in the world, combined with our connected platform or ecosystem called Interact. We fuel connectivity through AI-driven measurement and create some sort of a self-learning ecosystem for our clients and partners. If you think about how this translates into value, a case in point that came up recently on a telecom client is we were able to take up some of the call center data, which is unstructured in most part, it's just free text, and overlay that with ad exposure information that we could collect and provide some natural language processing models like LLMs on top of it. And we were able to identify key moments of risk or churn. And this allowed us to be able to give the call center reps in real time personalized offers that could allow them to minimize churn. And in fact, when we start to kind of correlate the results, we were able to see that retention was starting to kind of double up in terms of what it was pre and post. So that definitely gives you a sense of the connective intelligence that data can provide. On our platform ecosystem, there are 3 or 4 elements that we think are gaining. One is from the lens of foundational AI-driven identity, creating that single source of truth. AI-driven insights curation, as we want to get to faster, more speedier decision making. AI-driven predictive modeling, where we're using a lot of sophistication in forecasting and figuring out what is going to happen based on what has already happened. And the last thing that I would say is creating more context in a generative lens as we fuel assets at scale in our creative testing lifecycle. So quite fascinating in that sense, where the trend itself is less around AI, but it's more around the connectivity we're providing AI to fuel past actions into future predictions.
Okay, great. I really like that comment about partial truths, because I think we're seeing quite a bit of that as these systems come together. Matt, so give me your sense from Digitas's perspective on the AI connection layer and what that means to you.
Yeah, I think and to not touch on this, right? The kind of insights that our clients continually ask us for, right? From an analyst all the way to leadership, all we've heard is, I need better insights, I need faster insights, right? I like to think of it as kind of an iron triangle. You can have accurate data, you can have really deep insights, and you can have it fast. Pick 2 of them, right? That's typically been the what's been holding us back. That's been one of the roadblocks. I think with the AI interconnectedness level, you can get those 2 things at speed. The iron triangle essentially becomes a lot smaller. It becomes a lot more shrunken, right? So having these AI-enabled interconnected systems is taking some of the tension out of that. I think the basic concept still holds, right? There will be tension between those 3 things, but having that interconnected layer is going to be able to essentially get to those deep insights with accurate data extremely quickly. And that's something that we just haven't been able to do, all 3 things, simply as humans, without teams that are just simply not palatable from a scoping perspective.
Okay, that makes sense. And John, just to kind of wrap this section up, just from what you're hearing, how does this sort of connect for you in terms of what you've built at Akkio with regards to the connectivity layer?
Yeah, the way I like to think about the connectivity layer is it's kind of analogous to like a business process that you would do in a, like pre-AI environment, which is to say, a business consists of like its people, its processes, its unique differentiated data, and its systems that it connects together to do tasks. And when you're starting to use AI to automate or enable more people to do these jobs, you're basically faced with the same problem you have in a large distributed organization with all of these capabilities, which is you have to come up with ways to organize all of that into an execution framework. And so what that's turned into with what we're building is really what we call context management. And every bit of your process, your training, what data you have access to, the system hooks that are available to you, can all be considered sort of context or contextual relevancy for executing a task. And sort of the trick is to like capture all that information, organize it, and then be able to take advantage of the right bits of it at the right time to do a job in an automated fashion or to enable someone to do something they couldn't do before. And actually, like the more we build at Akkio, the more I think what we're really building is a context management system that effectively gathers all of these like pieces together in a way that you can use them intelligently at any point in time, both like to do a task as well as to connect tasks together. So that's how I think of it, sort of like similar to the business processes of today, but organized and available to language models.
Okay, great. And we all know how important context is, and it'll continue to be super important as AI continues to accelerate. Right bit at the right time. I really like that because that certainly plays into our industry. We've always been talking about the right ad at the right time, the right this at the right time. And the reality is we do need to be able to use the right sets of data at the right time for AI. Okay, moving on to our next section. And thank you for that, guys, as the start. I'm going to start here with talking about foundations, and certainly from an IPG perspective, you've built impressive technology capabilities over the years. So as you add in and think about the layers of connection that are needed to amplify your investments, what opportunities do you see open up for your teams and clients?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question to kind of explore, because if you think about the role AI has played, if you dial back a couple of years, I think AI, I read a stat that said November 2022 is when the notion of generative AI started to explode. So the concept of AI becoming more mainstream has just been 2 to 3 years. Though the foundations of AI, from machine learning to past neural networks, have been around for a while now, right? And in our world where IPG takes, and I will build on what John said around contextual relevance, is we know that AI is now open source. Large language models can be enabled in under a few days, kind of from soups to nuts, and everyone has access to similar methodology and technology. But what we have found is also a differentiator is how you are training the AI models, how you govern those models, and how we create a multi-agentic world where it's a connected AI ecosystem. So if you think about people who started a couple of years ago with bespoke AI experiments, so think of like, let me build an agent to do X, let me build an agent to do Y. There were individual tasks that people were either testing or piloting to see how that would help enable value at scale for an organization. Fast forward to today, we're starting to see a multi-agentic environment where we are seeing a necessity to have AI agents talk to each other to create a more collaborative ecosystem, right? So from an IPG lens, we have a couple of things that we bring to bear, which is our proprietary learning layer of sorts. If you think about Axiom's deep identity data source and ecosystem that we bring to bear, connected with IPG Mediabrands' kind of media footprint and the overlay between first party and third party data, we're now being able to bring more of that connectivity that drives business objectives and outcomes for our clients. Also, what I would say is the connected marketing workflow this enables, from pre-planning to planning to segmentation to execution to activation to measurement, that singular closed loop intelligence that we are driving is becoming really, really stellar. What we also are realizing is this makes a lot of headspace for teams, whereas we start to bring more of the AI intelligence to augment our human intelligence. Various tasks that were considered to be repetitive or redundant can now be done in a much more expeditious manner, which means it creates a lot more headspace for our teams to start thinking about not the task at hand, but the value that the task at hand can drive for a given organization. The opportunities that we are seeing within IPG could be across a multitude of things like dynamic creative optimization that largely used to be pretty kind of cumbersome workload. It took a lot of time for people, and overlaying that with personalization that allows us to make actions scalable and in time has become a key game changer. Think about the volumes of assets that we can traverse through to provide that intelligence at the turn of a button. Also, what we are starting to see is micro and macro segmentation are getting more intelligent as our AI models are starting to look at audience or consumer behaviors and starting to identify patterns that are becoming more indicative and relevant in how we create more precision in the world of media, where we're not necessarily focusing on spending more money to drive incremental reach, but we're focusing on driving precision to spend less to get more. And the last thing that I would say is in our world, there is the key notion of closed loop measurement. It's becoming a fundamental necessity. In fact, we recently announced a solution in partnership with Trade Desk called True Intelligence that allows us to be able to look at connected person level closed loop measurement, which is becoming a game changer and starting to create more connectivity across the various ecosystems that a brand or a client is activating their media in. So it's getting really powerful. And when these systems start to talk to each other more intelligently, I genuinely think people will now have more time to think about thought leadership, strategy, scaling their ideas versus just focusing on reactive, let me report on what has happened and state the facts, which doesn't necessarily always translate into actions.
Yeah, and I think freeing up our high value resources is certainly a key impact that AI and the connection of AI is gonna bring organizations. Thank you for that. That was super helpful. Enzo, from a Mediaplus perspective, how does the connectivity with AI change your speed and your scale, and sort of thinking about how you've used data in the past?
So I think I always bring it back to people, because in the past we can all relate to that. We had always a tendency to be very descriptive with the data that we got, right? So we saw a graph, we saw some stats, and we described what we were seeing, and we try to visualize it. But what we are seeing right now, what we are also implementing, that even though you have the best reg system, the best infrastructure, there is this 20% that you need to have the human in the loop that is capable to give the right insights, and also to communicate the right insight to our clients. So it's becoming more a decision system rather than just a reporting system and so on. And what's really important, what was also said, is the context. So I think John said it. You need to have the right context in order to bring this system to life. And this is actually the biggest game changer in the way how we work. So you have the system. You have, let's say, 80% of the output is qualitative. You can use it. So mediocrity, it's less tolerated, I think. But you need the human being. You need to create the right headspace in order that human being is actually able to have this additional push to the insights and so on. So otherwise, it's just a system talking, but you need to take decisions. And right now, even though everyone is preaching that agents are fantastic and they're hyping it up, you need someone that is taking the decision, and that's still the human being taking the decision. It's not an agent doing it. So,
yep. And that makes total sense. And the reality is that our talent needs to be able to use these tools, right? And that's sort of the point in connecting all of the AI tools that are headed into enterprises, so that everybody in the organization can be sped up. And it can scale better. So, John, what were the major challenges that you have faced at Akkio in building the connected context layer? And is it harder than it looks?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is build the enterprise infrastructure that lets you actually productionize AI agents. Like Anant was saying, it's really easy now to get a prototype agent to show it doing a task, but actually productionizing it is pretty challenging. And in the shape of several different features that have to be done right. And the first is providing the right context, but that's a little bit complicated because it's a data control problem. You may have some like agency-wide enrichment data, and then of course you have some client first-party data, and you have measurement data. And if you're going to productionize these workflows, you need to compartmentalize information appropriately. Every client might have access to some research reports or enrichment data or audience identity data that the agency has. But each individual client might have access to some client-specific information, and you have to be very careful that that never bleeds across between clients, right? And then each person using the system has to have different role controls and permissions, whether that's an internal agency employee or actually a client, and the system self-serving answers to analytics questions. So putting all of that together in a way that you can then operationalize these workflows is sort of the key first step. On top of that, you need to have like observability and user experience are the two terms I'll use. And I think Enzo rightly called out that like it's really important that the human who is in the loop has the ability to see how the job's getting done and why it was done, so they can understand if it was done right or not. That's not so different than if you did something via like a Jira ticketing process today. You'll want to understand what the approach to the job that was done was, so that you can iterate on it if necessary. Making sure that your user experience and workflow management system supports all of that is also incredibly important. So building the components to enable that at production scale in a system that controls access across all of the different data, so that the right information is available to the right user in the right client compartment at the right time is the hard part here. But if you can do all of that, you can get to production workflows and you can really accelerate.
Fantastic. I think what I've seen in my experience is building agents is definitely not the difficult part. It really is the productionizing, and I think putting some emphasis into the user experience so that adoption occurs quickly in organizations is very key. Moving on to our next section really quickly. I'm going to talk a little bit more about scaling. Matt, from Digitas's perspective, how do you look at building for scale without building too fast, and what do you prioritize first?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I'll use a meta. I usually tend to speak in metaphors, so I'll use one here. I've got young kids, and they love magnet tiles. I don't know if anyone else has kids with magnet tiles, but they are pretty fun. I'll give them that. But they're not like Legos or Duplos, right? Like when you build them too tall too quickly, they fall down extremely fast. And it's, rethinking the approach when they see it fall and get upset, they then have to kind of rebuild the foundation, strengthen it, move it around, right? Like, and maybe this is also what I do cleaning up after the kids have gone to bed, but I think building with AI is kind of the same way, right? Like at Digitas, we have solid use cases, and we think they can actually add value to either an internal system or to a client in a commercial setting. It's so broad that the way we build with it can really go in any direction. So it's really crucial to stay mission focused on the original goal, right? It doesn't mean being stubbornly attached to an idea, but if you start to see a project going in a pretty different direction, it's probably time to stop and reassess the endpoint. Sometimes that means changing the mission, which is fine, right? But other times it means that we're just getting out over our skis, and we need to refocus the limited time and energy that we have, given the breadth and depth of what we can do with AI. On something more real, right? Our task force at Digitas, we have a parking lot that would rival, I think, Disneyland's, right? But that's really helped keep our focus tight, and make sure that we're not only driving value in what we're doing, but we're going to be given the opportunity and the resources to continue scaling, right, from the group, without too much concern that the tower essentially is getting too high for its foundation and will topple over. So I really think just mission focused, and really making a call, do we need to change the way this is going? And is this still close enough to what we set out to do, to ensure that we're doing this intentionally, right? You cannot do AI for AI's sake. You will go into a morass that you'll never get out of.
And with that, just real quick, as you're looking to scale any AI-enabled use case internally, how challenging is the adoption component?
That's, as someone mentioned earlier about like training your people, right? I think we talk about AI and agentic AI about, oh, the agents are going to talk to each other. It's like throwing, again, another metaphor. It's like you need a teacher in the kindergarten class, or the kids it's going to be Lord of the Flies, right? So like you really do need humans at the control. At Digitas, 2 weeks ago, we had kind of a day of pause, right? Where we paused our client work across most of what you could pause essentially on a Friday, and said, hey, everyone's going to come to these sessions. It's going to be led by leadership. You're going to see the buy-in you're getting at the C-suite level all the way down to the analyst. And from that, we saw, unbelievable numbers. These are things that we track. These are things we want to make sure people are using the tools that we're putting time, effort, and resources into. But also being there, because this does cause some trepidation within the organization, given all of the media about, oh, AI is going to come for your job. It's going to replace everything. We're not seeing that. We're seeing it add incredible value to what humans are already doing. And we want to make sure that our people know, hey, that's how we want to approach using this. This is not a play to goose bottom line numbers, right? It is a play to make your work even more valuable and take out the rote things that no one enjoy. I'm sure some people enjoy QA of data, but no one loves QAing data all the time. And so if we can take that out with an agent, awesome. And just showing them the value for them, outside of it being something we can commercialize, it really is something that should be making our jobs, I think, just more challenging in a way that we want to be challenged, as opposed to just have tedious work over and over and over.
Sure, no, that makes sense. And John, on this topic here, so when you're seeing AI tools making decisions across multiple platforms, how do you maintain control without destroying the efficiency gains that you're trying to create? Can you give any examples?
Yeah, my sort of like simple way to phrase it is to make sure you're always shining a light. And by that, I mean, every like step in any process needs to be observable. And you need to be able to go back on any work that was automated and see how it was done across every system at every step. And that doesn't mean that you're going to like watch like every single automation process all of the time, but it does mean you have to be able to spot check and inspect them and make sure they were done the way that you expected. And like, of course, like when you stand them up, you'll want to do user testing, you'll want to do acceptance testing, you'll want to, the way I'm very much with Matt on this, which is I think the right way to leverage this to get to scale is to first automate the existing busy work and then extend it into new application spaces instead of just chasing sort of the top of the magnet tower of like new exciting directions. Go with the stuff that you know really well. And because you know it so well, you'll know if it's done right. Automate the busy work out of those workflows, verify that it's working, run it for a while and be able to go back and inspect and make sure that it was done right at any time. If you ever have a question come up in any sort of execution task, you need to be able to go back and at least audit. And so you need the systems in place to enable all of that in order to really get to scale. And then once you've started automating your like sort of high value, high frequency, high busy work existing processes, then you can start to think about what new cool stuff you could extend into, where you can start to leverage people's like ability to drive additional value now that they have some time freed up. So that's kind of how I think about it. So shine a light is the summary there. Everything needs to be observable.
Makes a lot of sense. Nobody wants a black box. We have to understand what's happening. Okay, Enzo. When we think about the fact that enterprises are starting to scale out their AI use and building connected systems, often using similar AI tools, whether that be out of the box, off the shelf tools from certain companies or building bespoke, but often similar tools. So how do you maintain differentiation amongst your competitors if there's an even playing field when it comes to AI tools?
I want to start actually with a really nice quote of Andrej Karpathy. For the one that know him, it's like a reference of in the AI world. And he said actually the hottest new programming language is actually English. And why I'm saying it is because the difference is not only the tools, because you can orchestrate it, but what's really interesting is that even if you have a dialog box and you want to interact with it, it's very, very difficult to know what you want to know. And again, maybe it's a little bit more philosophical, but it's about, again, the people, but also the logic that you're building around the systems that you're building, your foundation. So And that's for me still a key differentiator. You can have a system, you can have a strong foundation, you can have the biggest and the most advanced data set, but the majority of the people know what they need, they want to know, and that's still a big challenge, because even though if I am in front of ChatGPT, sometimes I don't know how to formulate things, and that's still the biggest advantage. So having people trained and know what they do. So
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think the reality is that if we can even the playing field, then data, unique data within an organization, and what you do with that data and your talent overall is still the differentiator between organizations as you compete. Anant, any quick thoughts on that, just in terms of differentiation?
Yeah, a few things. One, we talked about it briefly, but building what I would call an AI governance framework that foundationally looks at building valid data spine that feeds an AI model, because it's like junk in, junk out. If the data isn't appropriately organized, if it isn't cleansed, if it isn't contextually relevant, the model is just going to spit out results. Case in point, I opened up LinkedIn this morning. It's all about Coke's intent to go into the holiday season with another AI generated creative, which they did last year. And people were quite critical of it, because though the ad was built soups to nuts with AI, what people didn't necessarily pay enough attention to on the brand side is, are there errors or mistakes in how the ad came together? And for case in point, in the ad, there were at least like 8 to 10 instances where they have these Coke trucks having different sets of tires, but displayed at different points in time, right? So seems minor, but people are quite critical when they look at the use of AI in real world instances. The second I would say is, in our world specifically, where the model democratization aside, the context that we need to build. So if you're an agency like ours, clients come to us because we are the vertical experts, we are the industry specialists, right? So there is fundamental necessity for us to build a lot of that industry or vertical context into the model ecosystem so that it is relevant and applicable to a given client's vertical. Now add in further context by feeding historical performance reporting, decks, reports about a client themselves, adds more relevance on past that predicts the future along with what the present is. So that's becoming key as well. And I would say that the third is the people element, right? Connectivity comes in the form of also organizing our people to be able to be more AI friendly. I think I saw a staggering stat that said that today enterprises on an average have 70 to 75% of their organization testing or piloting AI in some capacity. And that number is going to go to 99% in 2027, which is staggering. Now take that in conjunction with every human. I'm sure everyone on this call to some degree uses generative AI on their day-to-day for whatever reason, right? Because we call it mirror intelligence, which is we feed it context, we feed it our tone, our language, and it builds intelligence over time. It retains the history that we provide. So all the responses that it creates is more contextually relevant. Now, building a more foundational framework where that intelligence can scale beyond one individual to multiple individuals within an organization, where a lot more of that AI agentic labor is available, repeatable, and at scale, is going to become a game changer for brands to work with agencies and agencies to scale the relationship with brands, because it is no longer a nice to have where AI is playing a critical role in the way we go to market. It's expected of us, and that expectation transcends much more progressively than just doing our job, which we're always expected to do, which is the task that you're expected to deliver on the existing scope is BAU, right? What clients are looking for from us is the additive intelligence, the industry expertise, what's going to happen next that we can use to influence a brand's growth or business objectives and outcomes. So it's really fascinating where, as we start to look forward into this era, systems are going to continuously learn from each other. People are going to leverage AI and as we talked about human and AI in the loop, AI agents are going to become more and more fundamental and essential, where the human to AI ratio is going to only grow over time. And organizations are just going to get smarter and smarter as AI's continuous learning loop evolves over time.
You said a lot of really cool things in there. The one thing I wanted to touch on very quickly is the Coke commercial. I saw a quote, I think from Musk, that said something like, in the next couple of years, I think he said 3 to 5, 95% of content consumed by consumers will be AI generated. Whether he's right or not is one thing, but it just brings me back to the tolerance level of consumers. It's like when we got into the era of UGC content, everyone was like, they're not going to tolerate it. And then the reality is that they clearly did. So I think AI generated content certainly will make up a lot of content and will be tolerated by consumers. And there's a lot of other things to unpack there. I also think what can be interesting as we move into this future of connected AI systems, AI tools, systems learning from each other, is the eventual potential that we're going to have to market to agents. As opposed to marketing to marketers who are managing agents. Like there's going to be marketing to agents and agent to agent marketing. So just a couple added thoughts there. We got a little bit of time here I'm going to give a bit of a bonus round question. So Matt, I'm going to start here with you.
Sure.
One word or phrase, if everything were interconnected tomorrow, so all the systems, all the intelligence, what becomes possible that isn't quite possible yet today?
Yeah, the one thing I keep coming back to is speed, right? When I joined this industry, I won't say when to age myself, but like big data was the topic. Everyone walked in, oh, you're drinking from the fire hose, right? We had all these words for it and these phrases for it. I think with AI, you get the speed. Like if you put 100 analysts into a room, they could get to what AI gets to, but it's still going to take a lot of time, right? AI is not creating new math theorems yet. I'm sure it'll get there, right? But it's not doing that. It's using existing human knowledge just at a speed that was unimaginable 5 years ago, right? So I think it really is just, if I talked about the iron triangle earlier, it just shrinks that, and we can get to those insights with the accuracy that we want at just unfathomable speed. So it's a lot of words for a one-word answer: speed.
Okay. No, that's helpful. It also makes me think about the fact that when we got to the point where we could measure everything, the question was, should we? And the fact that we can speed up everything, the question is, should we? Could cause some troubles as well. On the same topic, though, I want to toss this out again here because we have a little bit of time. Enzo, can you give me your thoughts on one word or one phrase? If all things are connected, what what would be possible?
No, I think we're getting in speed, of course, and with speed comes also scalability. But right now there will be also another challenge is if you have speed and you are able to scale, what does it mean? It means actually that you need to act fast, and that's also a big challenge that we have in our industry. It's about, you see that the assets are not performing that well, or your target audience is not responding as expected. How do you change the whole value chain in order to act as fast as possible? But I think, at least I hope, that by having this interconnected agents that are really sharing information, that we might be acting fast based on the insights, or based on the speed that we have right now. So it's like the Jevons paradox. So the more you have you can do something, the more requests, and right now we are stuck in the middle. We have a lot of requests, but we cannot execute it because the value chain is not ready yet for it. So
that makes plenty of sense. I also think we need to train people how to work a little bit differently as these tools get more connected. John, a word from our sponsor. You can wrap this one up. How about you on phrase or one word and what is going to be possible?
Yeah, I'll use the word leverage because I think if you can connect everything, you can start to get end-to-end automation, and you can take all of the busy work off people's plates. which means like you can spend a lot more time on high value, like high impact tasks and thinking. And that'll just drive better outcomes for everyone. And so you can gain a lot of leverage across your organization and your operations. But first, everything has to be connected. So leverage would be my word, but encompassed in that would be speed, decision making, and empowerment, and also democratization of access to many, many more people.
Excellent. We are coming down to the close here. I want to give our audience a couple of takeaways from today to think about, on top of the fact that you all mentioned some many good points. And I have a number of quotes here that I think are going to be very helpful. So key takeaways: your data is your competitive advantage. I think this is where people need to stop fearing AI solutions and realize that what the panelists have said here, it's going to speed you up. It's going to get you 80% of the way. You still need human creativity. You still need human in the loop. You still need humans to operate. But your data is your competitive advantage. Connected infrastructure is the foundation for this success. You can have a good agent working in a silo, but the reality is if you want that intelligence unlocked across the organization, we do need connected infrastructure for this. Connectivity amplifies the differentiation. It does not amplify commoditization. And then lastly, context, which we heard in numerous parts of the responses here from our panelists. Context becomes the scalable library. And I do think when we think about context, it's getting down into the individual user and the individual market on the individual product or line of business that they're working on, and how that tool becomes very specific for their role. So that will bring our webinar to a close. I'm going to see if we have a couple of questions in here that we can ask from the audience. It's give me 1 second because we have about 2 minutes. So I think we can throw one out here. Okay, let's see. All right, so really quickly, and try to keep the answer short because we only have 2 minutes, and I'll pass this around as quickly as I can. So we heard a lot about interconnectivity and how complex it is. What does this mean for your organization when it comes to build versus buy? Is it critically important that you build everything, or are you looking at partnerships in order to speed up your investments in AI? Matt, quick answer.
Really quick, I think to compete in AI, if you look at all the money that's been poured into AI and you look at holding company balance sheets, I think we're not going to be able to build. You can't compete with the billions and billions of dollars going into AI. We will have to partner or buy in some way with our own layer on top of it somewhere.
Yeah, makes sense. Anand?
I would agree. It has to be a mix. It can't all be built. It has to be partnered where it makes sense, bought where it makes sense.
Excellent. Enzo, same line of thinking?
Yeah, it's totally agree. You cannot compete with the billions of dollars that they're investing in AI, and you need to build your own layer on top of it. So I totally agree with that.
All right. Folks, if you dropped other questions in, we are tracking them. We will get you responses. This will wrap up our webinar today. I thank you all for joining. To my panelists, really appreciate your perspective and thinking. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. And for everyone out there, keep doing your experiments, keep asking for what you need and getting your clients what you need when it comes to AI. The speed is moving very quickly and enterprises are catching up. So we appreciate the time, and remember to have AI your way. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Mike.